1978 Oldsmobile Cutlass Aeroback. General Motors' attempt to infuse European style into their mid-size lineup led to the ill-fated Aeroback design for the Buick Century and Oldsmobile Cutlass. Aiming for sophistication, GM ended up with a car that looked like a hatchback but wasn't, thanks to its traditional trunk lid, though buyers were too busy not purchasing it to quibble over technicalities. Confident in this polarizing design, GM initially skipped offering a standard sedan, a decision that backfired spectacularly. Sales nosedived, salvaged only by the more conventional wagon and attractive coupe. By 1980, GM scrambled to release a proper sedan, though for reasons beyond comprehension, the two-door Aeroback limped on until 1981. If you're puzzled by GM's dull styling throughout the 1980s, this misstep explains plenty. 1977 Volvo 262C. As the story goes, Henry Ford II's visit to Volvo's Kalmar plant left the Swedes so dazzled by the Lincoln Continental Mark III that they decided to make their own luxury coupe. The result? The infamous 262C, a car born from ambition but plagued by poor execution. Skipping the crucial step of creating a clay model, Volvo sent standard 262 GL coupes to Bertone in Italy, where the roofline was chopped by 2.6 inches, sacrificing practicality and comfort for questionable style. The cramped design made it nearly unusable for anyone over 6 feet tall. Still, over a 5-year run, Volvo somehow sold 6,600 of these awkward coupes, proving that poor design can occasionally find a surprisingly willing audience. 1977 Lada Cavalero. The Chevrolet Chevette wasn't much to brag about. Slow, noisy, and uninspiring. But at least it had the decency to be forgettable. Not content with that, Mr. Donald E. Steinbach of Port Falls turned the Chevette into a rolling punchline. With 350 pounds of Bondo and fiberglass, he attempted to channel the spirit of the first-generation Monte Carlo. The result? A bizarre Frankencar he sold at nearly double the Chevette's price. Shockingly, Steinbach managed to produce almost 100 of these oddities, including a handful of El Camino-style pickups that somehow looked even more absurd. He named the creation Cavalero, reportedly in honor of his wife, though the name's mangled Spanish translation and dubious charm might have been grounds for separation. Ultimately, Steinbach's venture collapsed in financial ruin, a fitting end for a car that shouldn't have existed in the first place. 1970 AMC Gremlin. The 1970 AMC Gremlin was a cost-effective but unattractive vehicle, priced at 2/3 of most small cars. Despite its unappealing look, AMC considered an even shorter, uglier version of the Hornet. The Gremlin was a strategic move, affordable to develop and suited for the economic conditions of its time, leading to notable commercial success by AMC's standards. However, the car's design and build quality were major flaws. Cheap materials, poor refinement, and a cramped, uncomfortable interior made it less durable and unsuitable for long trips, resulting in a noisy, unpleasant driving experience that fell short compared to competitors. 1970 Buick Riviera. 1970 Buick Riviera transformation from the sleek, elegant design of 1966 to 1969 to the 1970 version was drastic and disappointing in 1970s. The front grille looked as though it was sliding off the car's face, creating an awkward, unbalanced appearance. The rear fender skirts seemed to be encroaching over the wheels like unchecked mold, contributing to an unattractive, cluttered look. Additionally, the entire body took on a bloated, swollen shape, reminiscent of something out of proportion and poorly conceived. This combination of design elements made the 1970 Riviera visually unappealing, and sales, which had been rising steadily, took a sharp decline. Fortunately, the 1971 model featured the much more attractive boat-tail design, which brought back some of the Riviera's lost charm. 1970 Ford Thunderbird. While the late 60s Thunderbirds weren't exactly beautiful, they at least avoided being outright offensive. Then 1970 arrived and Ford inexplicably added a giant beak to the front. This bizarre design choice rendered the 1970 Thunderbird one of the ugliest cars of the era. The exaggerated beak-like front end made the cars feel awkward and off balance. 1970 Porsche 914. The challenge of designing a balanced mid-engine car is clearly evident in the 1970 Porsche 914. The large gap between the B-pillar and rear wheel gives the car a stretched, disproportionate appearance. Compounding this is the flat, unadorned bodywork and the awkwardly raked greenhouse, which make the vehicle appear boxy and unsophisticated. Unlike other Porsche models that exude elegance and sporty allure, the 914's plain and unrefined aesthetic lacks the aspirational quality expected of the brand. Instead of capturing a dreamlike appeal, it conveys a practical, almost utilitarian vibe, which many considered too mundane for a Porsche. 1970 Saab Sonett 3. The third-generation Saab Sonett 3 was an attempt to cater to American tastes, but it missed the mark badly. The exaggerated front overhang gave the car a clumsy, unbalanced look that seemed almost comical. This impression was worsened by the bulky 5-mile-per-hour bumper awkwardly jutting out from the front, creating an even more ungainly appearance. The elongated nose contrasted sharply with the stubby, abruptly cut-off tail, resulting in mismatched proportions that lacked any sense of visual harmony. It's little surprise that the awkward design prevented the Sonett from gaining much traction in the American market until the more refined Saab 900 arrived. 1973 Leyland P76. With its wedge shape allowing the trunk to fit a 44-gallon drum, perhaps filled with something flammable, the P76 was an unusual sight. Produced by Leyland Australia, this large sedan seemed designed to extinguish any lingering nostalgia for the British Empire. Ironically, despite winning the 1973 Wheels Car of the Year award, it suffered from the minimal care and quality for which British Leyland was infamous, in other words, none. As if causing misery at home wasn't enough, they extended their shortcomings to the farthest corners of the Commonwealth. After just 2 years and only 18,000 units sold, the P76 faded into history as a symbol of squandered potential. 1973 Reliant Robin. Proof that three-wheel cars can be both ugly and pitiable. Unlike its predecessor, the Reliant Regal, which at least hinted at some faint semblance of dignity, the Robin abandoned any attempt at visual pride. With its goggle-eyed front and austere design, it looks less like a car and more like a reluctant compromise for those who couldn't afford a real one. Its desperation is palpable, as if pleading for even a shred of admiration, but instead, it merely confirms its place as a symbol of mediocrity. Unsurprisingly, withholding affection feels entirely justified.